we talk about the first archetype here. So we've got a warrior. All right. So maybe yeah, we can, if we take an overly passive warrior, that's somebody who's basically like harming himself. He's fighting, but he's fighting himself. All right. And somebody would say that's like the word they use is a masochist. It's like people who are they're they're not they're just off. Their perspective's off, and they're harming themselves in the way that they're fighting. So they know they need to be a warrior. That's part of who we all are as men. But they're fighting themselves. On the overly active side, we'll say there's a term they would call a sadist, and that's somebody who's just likes to cause harm. They like to cause pain for the sake of causing harm and pain for others, to others, and they just like to see suffering. All right, that's a warrior gone bad. That's like when you take your warriorhood to the wrong and long extreme. All right, so I don't know if somebody could read. Let's read about. So in order to know what the actual ideal is, I think we could talk about where being a warrior is righteous, and if somebody could read Matthew 21:12 for us. That's Matthew 21, verse 12. Somebody could look that up.
And Jesus went into the temple and drove out all who bought and sold in the sacred place, and he turned over the 4-footed tables of the money changers and the chairs of those who sold doves.
Right, so there's righteous anger. There's a righteous warrior. That's Jesus, meek and mild. Everybody says, oh, Jesus is just this lamb, and he's love and all that. But he is just, and he does not tolerate corruption, and especially in his house. And he exhibited godly and righteous anger in that temple as he overturned those tables, and it's recorded forever in Scripture, that righteous anger. All right, can somebody read Revelation chapter 19, verse 11?
Got it.
Send it.
The rider on the white horse. Then I saw heaven standing open, and there before me was a white horse, whose rider is called Faithful and True. With justice he judges and makes war.
All right, so there's the warriorhood of Jesus as he returns, and that's the ideal, and we can never approximate that, but that's the ideal, and that our Lord embodies. All right, so we'll go down to the poet. The poet, he's a guy, who's able to, he can see the scenarios as they're happening. He's got the vision. He's got the ability to read the room, like I said, and can maybe help situations along a little bit. All right, they can. Hey, you need to meet this guy because he can help you out. Hey, I just love the Lord, and I wrote this poem, and I want to share it with you guys. That's the kind of guy the poet is, and that could be, again, used for good. It could be used for bad. All right, so the poet basically, in terms of situation, on an overly passive side, is the guy who plays the ignorant victim. All right, so like, I don't know, they can see what they're responsible for, and they're like, they can play the scenarios so they don't get any response. I didn't do that. It's not my problem. That would be the poet, a guy who's gifted in that way, or how we all are gifted when we fail to do what we know we should do. And so a guy can read the room and can make situations work out in his favor and can take advantage of other people who are unwitting accomplices in what he's got going on. What's that guy?
Manipulator.
100%. Yep, that's exactly right. Why do people manipulate others?
Get what they want them to do.
Yep, to get what they want them to do. It's for control, because they have to control the situation. They want to control the outcome, so they've got to tell other people. They've got to force a scenario so they get what they want. And a lot of times, a truly evil manipulator is going to do things that harm others to get what they want. All right, so that's when things are way out of control. All right. Next thing we'll talk about is the lover. All right. So I think there's some terms that they used here. It might be kind of weird, I guess, but I thought they were powerful to me. And there's kind of a spectrum of this, and I look at in terms of being a physical man in the flesh. God made us exactly how we are. He made us flesh, and He made us so we want to meet a woman and be married and have a family, because there's so much good that comes out of it. And He modeled that really for us with a verse. In the way He lived His life as kind of the bride, or we the church are the bride, and He's the bridegroom. He loves us. All right, but if we could somebody read Ephesians 5:25? Yeah, Caleb, you could read that for when you get there.
5:25.
Yep.
Husbands, love your wives just as Christ also loved the church and gave Himself for her.
All right. So, husbands, the way we love our wives is not to make her submit. It's not to make her do what we want. It's not so we could be powerful, the man of the house. We want to love our wives as Christ loved the church. And what did Christ do for us? He died. He sacrificed Himself, for us. All right, and that's the way, as a godly husband, that we're supposed to live for our wives. All right, so that's the ideal. And we all fall short. All right, one side or the other. All right, and I'll just put up there, especially just as men as we go, somebody who's not being involved with their as I'm kind of talking from a husband's perspective, maybe, or just maybe as a man. Let's say somebody who's overly passive is not powerful or is impotent. All right, and there's a loaded term there we're not going to get into, but and then on an overly active side, somebody who's they're so driven by the lusts of the flesh, that they can't stop, looking at pictures on the internet, or they've gone down so many bad paths that they're addicted to the lusts of the flesh. All right, so we'll call that an addict over here. And that's an easy trap for men to fall into, because we're all driven by what we see. And once you start going into these neat little pieces of technology that have the world at your fingertips and are a portal to so much good, they can be a portal to a lot of evil. And I guarantee you can find a lot of things that are going to hurt you. So, as a man, as we're all wired to want to have a family and to want to find a wife. As a young man, you got to make sure that you're guarding your eyes. Be careful what you watch, be careful what you see, and be careful what you expose yourself to, because once you see things, it's really hard to unsee them. All right, so seek purity in your life. And I would say it's vital that even if you've made a mistake, just know that you're redeemable. Like the Lord can cleanse you, and He can purify you, and He can make you whole again. So I just encourage you there, because everybody falls short. But remember, we're all going towards that high standard that Jesus gave us, to love our wives. And if you're not married yet, save yourself for that one woman and guard your hearts and guard your eyes. All right. So finally, we'll talk about a king. So I guess the Israelites had judges and they had rulers, or they had people that would kind of discern right from wrong and tell people what they needed to do. But they really wanted a king because all the other cultures around them had kings. And that kingly tradition went on through David, or Saul to David, and David was a man after God's own heart. But then there was, there's just a history of kings, and they became really not after God's own heart. They became kind of like looking out for number one, their family's dynasty, power, land, all these things. But really, a king, a godly king, is a provider. A king provides. He gives. He's the gold giver. He's the one who makes sure all the people that live on his lands have everything that they need to survive. That's kind of medieval, feudal kind of perspective there. But a godly king is one he gives justice and he provides in a way that is fair and right to his people. And really, as dads, we're kind of like a king in our house, and we provide justice to our kids, to our with our wife, and we want to make sure that we're doing it in a fair way that honors the Lord. Anyways, so let's think about this. This was kind of like a little Braveheart analogy, I guess. Who all's even seen that movie? Yeah, right. To me, that's like, I'd say Braveheart's like the defining movie of our generation, at least of my generation. I mean, it's like I think I saw it in 1996 in the wardroom at the Naval Academy, and I was like, that's it. Like that's the kind of warrior that I want to be. And just all the quotes and all the battle scenes, it was just like, that's awesome. It just stirred my heart, and it's kind of stuck with me even all these years later. And I think about the kings in that movie. There's a couple kings that were out there. One was the bad king. Well, actually, there are two bad kings. So one was the Longshanks. All right, what kind of king was he? A tyrant. Yes. So an overly active king is a tyrant. All right, he is going to squash the rebellion. He's going to put them down. He's going to use whatever force is necessary to destroy any kind of opposition to his rule. All right. What about the old guy who's his face was all wrapped up in little cloths and stuff like that? He had leprosy, I think. What was his name? The older Robert the Bruce, right? So the son was like trying to figure it all out, but the older guy was the actual king. He was in hiding. He was like kind of behind the wall looking down, and he was sitting there manipulating the situations to try to get himself in a better position. But what was he really doing? Was he being a provider? Was he taking care of his people? What was he? He was a weakling. What was the word you said? He's reclusive. Yep, exactly. And he was weak. He was a weak king. He failed to engage, and he failed to take care of the people that he was responsible for. So, all right. So, kind of fill out my little chart here. There's kind of a spectrum. There's a spectrum of all these different aspects. We've kind of covered them a little bit, and there's probably hours of discussion that we could give over it. But I want to add a couple things to this little chart here. Okay.